A Happy New Year to all of you, and looking for a big year this coming year. I would like to start out, if I may please, with the roll call.
Commissioner Alvarado.
Yes.
Commissioner Assini. Commissioner Burke.
Here.
Commissioner Dunn. Commissioner Arp.
Here.
Commissioner Cromer.
Present.
Commissioner Gilmedi.
Here.
Commissioner Guardino.
Present.
Commissioner Inman. Commissioner Waring. And Chair Tavaloni.
Here. And we'll move on to item number 4, the approval of the minutes of December the 6th. Do I have any changes on? Have a motion? Have a second? Do I have a second?
Second.
So ordered. And we'll move on to item number 5, the Executive Director's Report.
Okay, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. I have several items to report on. The first one is on December 18th at the WTS Sacramento chapter, the Commission was recognized as Employer of the Year. And Chair Tavaloni, Commissioner Alvarado, and several of the Commission staff members were in attendance to accept the award. Commissioners, this achievement would not have been made possible without your support and the transportation stakeholders in this room. So I would like to thank WTS for their acknowledgement. Item number 2 is the 2013 Commission meeting schedule. And just want to remind you that based on the schedule that was approved in May of 2012, which a copy is in your folders, the Commission is scheduled to have one-day meetings every other month, with the exception of May and June, where they are back-to-back. Also, to remind you, at the March meeting, the Commission will be having a retreat, which will be the Monday, March the 4th, prior to the March 5th Commission meeting. The third item is the needs assessment. Commissioners, in the effort to address the projected $300 billion shortfall is progressing. That effort, we've had several work group meetings. The last one was held December 10th, and this meeting focused on efficiency measures and regulatory reform that, if implemented, it would reduce the fundings needed over the next 10 years. Transportation leaders representing Caltrans, CSAC, Transit are working together to prioritize the critical fundings for this effort, and also information that we need is critical to support the funding and efficiency options planned for consideration in the final report. The transportation leaders devoted to identifying these priorities are working very diligently to prepare this information, and staff expects this information will be provided in the immediate future for presentation in a draft form to you at the March Commission meeting. Of additional interest to you, Commissioners, Commission staff received several comments on the 2011 needs assessment. The first one was from the Safe Routes to Schools National Partnership, Santa Clara County Roads Commission, and a couple others. And also, in addition, the High Speed Rail Authority and the tribal governments have suggested additional amendments to the needs assessment. These comments that were suggested will require updating efforts to reflect the 375 and other factors. We will continue to work with the stakeholder community to assess the viability and best approach providing an update to the 2011 needs assessment, and we'll keep you informed. Commissioners, the last item I have is today CTF will be presenting the CTC scholarship, so I would like to call Sarah West to the podium.
Thank you, Commissioners. Bimla, am I on? Yeah. I'm the Executive Director of the California Transportation Foundation, and many of you have attended our events, participated in our golf tournaments, attended the Education Symposium, and one of the main things we do with the generous money that you donate is that we give scholarships. And so we're here today to give a CTF scholarship. In the history of CTF, we have given out, including this one today, $655,562 in scholarship grants to 902 winners. This scholarship is given in honor of the CTC. The funds were raised during the 30th anniversary party for the CTC, and an endowed scholarship was created. The scholarship is funded annually from the proceeds of that endowment. Today we are giving this, and the CTC, by the way, has authorized CTF to choose the winner, and we choose the winner based on an essay, what I would do to improve transportation in California. And we choose the winner amongst the students who attend the Education Symposium. I know many of you have attended that. If you haven't, it's an incredible opportunity. Many, many people say it's their favorite thing they do all year, transportation-wise. And more than a few students have told us it's the best thing they've done in college. And that's only 2 days, so I often wonder what the college is doing for 4 years. But anyway, so here we are today. And Bimla, do you want to? Oh, there you are. Here you go. Here we go. And our winner today is Ariana Alahar. Ariana is a urban planning major at Cal Poly Pomona. She is going on to wonderful things. Hopefully, we're going to keep her here in California. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Commissioners, as a CTF board member and also member of the CTF Scholarship Committee, I had the opportunity to review Ariana's essay, and it really stood out. And I know that Commissioner Simi is not here, but Commissioner Gilmetti, Ariana's concentration is urban land use and planning, so very much deserved. Congratulations, Ariana.
Thank you. Well, I just want to say I'm so happy to be here and thank the commissioners for their time, as well as thank the California Transportation Foundation for bringing me here to this opportunity. I do have to agree with what Sarah mentioned. It was only 2 days, the Foundation Education Symposium, but it was probably the best 2 days of my college career. So I am an urban planning student finishing up this year. I'm also looking to attend graduate school in transportation engineering so I can have both the qualitative, quantitative skills to tackle all of California's transportation problems. I definitely hope to make a positive impact in the future, and I appreciate having the support and being recognized for my passion in transportation, and I look forward for what's to come. Thank you.
I'll wait a second here so that we can have our commissioners that arrived, and we'll move back up, I guess. Let's see, we wanted to wait on two also because of the scene. No, let's see, we wanted, ready? Okay, we'll, if I may, please, we'll go to item number 2.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, item number 2 is a resolution of necessity, and it is an appearance. Before I start, I would like the Chair to inquire if Mr. Caddy or his representative is present.
He's in the back there.
All right. With that, I'd like to read a couple of statements here for the record. Under eminent domain law, a property owner whose property is under condemnation consideration has the right to appear before the Commission to question 3 and only 3 issues. 1, whether public interest and necessity require the proposed project, whether the proposed project is planned and located in a manner that is most compatible with the greatest public good and least private injury, and 3, whether the property to be condemned is necessary for the proposed project. The Commission neither determines the amount of compensation for the property rights to be acquired nor deals with any other issues than those 3 just mentioned. Government Code Section 7267.2 requires the Department to make an offer to purchase the property rights needed. The Department has made the required offer. The Department's property condemnation process includes review panel meetings to try to settle outstanding issues to which the property owner is invited. Those meetings have been held. Code of Civil Procedure, Section 1245.240 specifies 8 affirmative votes for Commission approval of a resolution of necessity. The Commission scheduled an appearance at the request of the property owner, Mr. Robert Caddy. The property in question consists of 156.7 acres of rolling grazing land zoned for agriculture, encumbered with a single-family residence, and 22.6 acres zoned industrial with multiple businesses. The property is impacted by a $35.5 million shop shoulder widening project on State Route 12 in the city of Rio Vista in Solano County. The department needs approximately 2.4 acres in fee, 0.87 acre in temporary construction easement, and 475 square feet in utility easement to construct new standard 8-foot shoulders. The property owner contends the current design is unsafe because the department is not providing a left turn pocket into the industrial zone business area. Public funds typically are not used to provide left turn pockets from state highways onto private property. Caltrans District 4 Director Bijan Sartipi is present and is ready to make the department's presentation, to be followed by the property owner's presentation. Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the commissions. My name is Bijan Sartipi. I'm the Caltrans District Director for Bay Area in District 4. Today, Caltrans is seeking a resolution of necessity for the Caddy property in the city of Rio Vista in Solano County. I would like to start an overview of the project and then continue with the impact on the Caddy property. The project is located in the city of Rio Vista on State Route 12 in Solano County. State Route 12 serves as a major east-west corridor connecting Napa, Sonoma, Solano, and San Joaquin counties. This state route is also the only east-west route connecting Solano County to the Sacramento and Stockton area that handles significant amount of inter-regional traffic. This slide shows the existing Route 12. The project consists of work in 3 separate locations shown in blue. Mr. Caddy's property is outlined in green and abuts Route 12 on the eastbound direction. The project is funded under the Collision Severity Reduction Program and will construct a standard 8-foot shoulders, correct existing non-standard vertical curves to improve the vertical sight distances, and provides 3 left-turn pockets at Curry, McCloskey, and Azevedo roads, and will repave the roadway. This slide shows the aerial view of the project location. Caddy property is outlined in green. The property is 179.35 acres in size and has 3,400 feet of frontage along State Route 12. The property is zoned 87% agriculture and 13% industrial. The existing right-of-way is outlined in black. The proposed right-of-way is outlined in blue. The green area is the proposed fee acquisition of approximately 2.41 acres that spans the frontage with an average width of 31 feet. The red area is the temporary construction easement of approximately 0.87 acres, again spanning the frontage of the property with a width of about 11 feet. The orange area is the public utility easement of 475 square feet. This area is 95 feet wide with 95 feet long and 5 feet wide. The department has worked with Mr. Caddy to resolve some of the initial issues, which included tree removal, the issue with more property being taken from his side of the road than the other side, and the proximity of the proposed right-of-way line to the house. The property owner contends that the project should include a left-turn pocket into his private driveway at Caddy Lane, since without it, project would be unsafe. It is not department's policy to provide left-turn lanes into a private property. In previous meetings, Mr. Caddy referenced 2 left-turn lanes into private roads, one at Nurse Sulu Lane and another at Mods Lane, both on State Route 12 in Solano County. Nurse Sulu Lane was a public road that was abandoned by Solano County in 1993. The nearest through left turn lane was added in 2007. Our information at the time indicated that it was a public road. Mods Lane was built as part of a state improvement project. Subsequently, Mods Lane became a private road, and the state has a non-exclusive roadway easement on Mods Lane. The left turn pocket also serves the main entrance to the Western Railway Museum. The department performed a supplemental traffic assessment in mid-September 2012, and no congestion or operational problem were observed. There has been 2 accidents between 2006 and 2012, one in 2006 and another in 2012, at the left turn movement at Caddy Lane. A left turn pocket at Caddy Lane will require additional fee acquisition of roughly 5,000 square foot from Caddy and 10,000 square feet from an adjacent property owner. The department would not object to have Mr. Caddy fund the improvement and construct the left turn lane as part of an encroachment permit. The property owner contends that the department should enlarge or add the culvert at the low point to prevent occasional flooding. Placing a culvert at the suggested location will not solve the flooding problem of Caddy property, since it is located within a 100-foot floodplain per FEMA mapping. The department is keeping the highway profile within the floodplain area at the existing condition. The project will reestablish drainage ditches and extends existing culvert to ensure that routine runoff from roadway stays within right-of-way drainage system. This project is programmed under Collision Severity Reduction Program. The purpose and need of the project is to provide shoulders, clear recovery zone, and improve sight distance. Addressing this specific existing flooding issue is outside of the scope of the project. This is a close-up view of the Caddy property. It shows the existing culvert in red. Well Creek is in blue to the north of the highway. The seasonal wetland is in green to the south of the highway on Caddy property. Placing a new culvert at the low point of the roadway adjacent to the wetland could effectively drain the wetland and alter the pattern of Well Creek. Such significant impacts to the wetland and creek would require consultation with resource agencies and additional mitigation, which would delay the project completion. This is in addition to the fact that such drainage improvements are outside of the project scope. The property owner is concerned about the handling of aerially deposited lead. The department's test results indicates that the ADL concentration is below the threshold and is classified as non-hazardous. It does not require disposal at a permitted landfill or solid waste facility. In summary, the department has demonstrated that the public interest and necessity requires the proposed project, that the project is planned and located in a manner that will be most compatible with the greatest public good and least private injury, that the property sought to be condemned is necessary for the proposed project, that an offer of just compensation has been made in accordance with Government Code Section 7267.2, and the department asks that the Commission adopts this resolution of necessity. That concludes my presentation.
Property owner.
Pardon me.
Mr. Cadigan.
Mr. Caddy.
Mr. Cadigan?
It should be directed.
I wasn't expecting a crowd like this for my presentation. So. First of all, my name is Robert Caddy, and myself and my brother George, who lives in Washington, own the property. And I want to thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to you today. This has been a interesting process with Caltrans, but anyway, I don't have any slides. Is it possible to back up and look at some of these? when I get into it, I think there won't be that many. There's some maps that should be shown. But first of all, I was born and raised in Rio Vista, and I've been on the Highway 12 Commission or Association with them 12 to 15 years, and I was the chair for 4 or 5 years, and was during the other part of the Highway 12 upgrading, enlarging. And living there, I've seen, well, 2 or 3 of my neighbors killed right at Azevedo Road, if you look at Azevedo Road there. And the reason it stimulated the last one, we had 6 people killed on Highway 12 in 1 year. So Caltrans, and they got busy, and they got that done. In talking with Caltrans, and we've had this problem, but nobody wants to correct it. First of all, the property owner names on the documents we're getting are incorrect. They have names on there that don't own any of that property. We've asked to have it corrected. It's owned by myself and my brother. Each has a trust, are the total owners of the property, not the other names that are listed, or the other name. The acreage is shown as 179.23 acres, 156.72 being ag, 29.64 being industrial, and those come from APN numbers. And so it's a total 186.36 acres. That's what we're paying taxes on. The APN number's been presented. Caltrans individual told me they don't use APN numbers. So I'm not sure how they're getting their acreage. Number 3, we are not in the city of limits of Rio Vista. We're in the county. And I don't know how the city got there, but we have told them that, or the representatives. Currently, we're on number 5 project individual for this project over the past couple of years. They keep changing. They just change again. So we don't have any continuity in communications. So some things are falling through the cracks. Now, the basic project that we're concerned about is Azevedo Road to Liberty Island Road. You had to... Can you... Okay. Right. Well, that's our property there. We have an industrial park right on Caddy Lane, and then if you go a little bit further, the industrial park's there. You can see the 29 acres, and then the homestead or the ranch is the next property there. Today, and on this property at Caddy Lane, there's a camera, 24/7. We monitor day and night everybody coming in and out. And just a month ago, we've had a lot more accidents there than I think they're picking up on their paperwork. But I have pictures of the accidents, and we also have the secretary getting hit from behind, trying to make a left turn there. But I understand the 2 things that I'm concerned about is the left turn lane at the 29-acre industrial and the flooding at the home place, the ranch. When on Nurse Road was brought up, and there is a left turn lane at Nurse Road, I have pictures of it, private property. I talked to the landowner. He always said it was private, but we can work with that. Now, one of the things that they're talking about is the center line stays the same. They're going to widen the roadway, and they're going to put an 8-foot shoulder. And in a couple of their letters, it indicates that it's possible that there'll be enough shoulder to pass on the right while cars are waiting to use the left turn or turn left into the industrial park. And there's probably more traffic going in and out of the industrial park than there are the other, Azevedo Road, McCluskey, or Curry. Those roads are basically, Azevedo Road is used when the construction, they're getting sand, but otherwise there's really only two ranches down that road. Today, turning into the industrial park, the traffic is actually going into the shoulder, and the fence is all gone where they go around waiting. On Fridays, when the big cranes, we have a company, McPherson Crane and Rigging, and they have the big cranes. When they're coming in, the traffic is so thick that they have to wait, and the traffic backs up around the turn to the Trilogy stoplight, which is Liberty Island Road. I have offered, in regards to traffic count, to use our camera. As a matter of fact, Friday they had an individual up who picked some random dates and did a car count and that. But earlier on, to prove our point about the traffic and the backup, it's very simple to take our camera. We hold 14 days. You can back it up. You can pick 2 to 5 in the afternoon. You can pick any time you want and do a car count. And the car counts that they've done, the car study, was actually done in 2008. They used an index, but 2008, the other part of Highway 12 was not complete, so our traffic has gone up. There's also a study being made right now between 80 and I-5, what they call a corridor study for the bridges. And when I talk to them, they have a totally different car count and traffic count, of which is available in letters and the corridor study and all that. For the left turn lane, as stated, they said we could have one. It would be a minimum of $300,000. We have offered to donate our property if they want to put a left turn lane or pocket or whatever, and that they can't do. Today, it's estimated that there's about 22,000 to 24,000 vehicles a day going through there, and it's between 25% and 28% trucks. Part of this SHOP program is for safety. By not putting a left turn lane there or pocket or wider road or whatever the terminology is, we're going to create an unsafe condition. And I've talked to my tenants, and most of us feel that if that were to occur, no left turn lane, and in the future, we're going to request a letter from Caltrans where they accept all liability. If my family or my kids are killed there on that intersection, as they were up here on this other one, our neighbor, there's some serious problems. Okay, the next problem we have is the flooding right here, right below the ranch. You had a wetlands map there, but our property is not in the wetlands, not in federal wetlands. The property across the road, north of the road, is 51 acres of federal wetlands. That's this property here. This is not. But when the rains come, this bar builds up, the culvert's here, it's above the low spot, the water backs up to the road, and it floods all the way back through here. And I have pictures of the flooding if anybody wants to look at them. I have pictures of all this. But currently, that road has flooded several times. I know they say it's only 2 times in 20 years, but when you talk to Caltrans Maintenance in Rio Vista, they can tell you because they have to come out and close that road. And if we're going to fix this road for a safe condition, there's no reason they can't just put a simple culvert down there which eliminates the flooding. And if they flood, it backs up into the basement of the house, the septic system, the well, and the shop. That's how far the water. And I have the federal wetlands maps and pictures of that occurring. So So if we're going to do something, let's just do it right and put a culvert in there. I know the reason why. They don't want to face another environmental situation. Also, in communicating with one of the engineers probably a year or two ago, I forget what, we've had a lot of different meetings. I told them that if they go to the maintenance yard in Rio Vista, they know how many times it floods because they keep a record of it. And I was told straight out that they don't have to communicate with people below their pay grade. Now, that's a hell of a statement if those are facts. It's kind of irritating because, well, also, if the new proposal, and they recognize some flooding, they're going to grind the road down and make it the same level, which doesn't eliminate the flooding problem. It creates the same situations we have today, and the culvert doesn't work today and has not worked for a long time. But the responsibility, if the water backs up, because they're talking guardrails also, if the guardrail stops the water and it backs up, it goes in the well, it plugs our septic system and everything. So there has to be some accountability on Caltrans's part, or responsibility or liability, to help finance or pay for whatever corrections. I know this isn't the time to talk about the finance and the money, but we haven't complained about $1 that we were offered, other than the fact they're going to move the right-of-way almost to the front porch, between 18 and 28 feet from the front porch of the house. That's where the right-of-way, all the trees will go. They also said that it would have no effect on the quality of life or the house. And nothing was offered there, but that's a different problem. What we're concerned about is the left turn lane and the flooding. And those are both safety situations, and if you've got a shop project and it's a safety project, let's fix it now. Let's not go ahead and wait until we have a problem. It was mentioned that I was concerned about the lead, which I requested a parts per million count. I have not got that. Just says it passes. We're going to be testing that probably ourselves through a lab. But it's pretty simple. They say it's tested. Just send us the test results so we can go from there. We also had a private appraisal done based on the Caltrans program, and that appraisal comes back with a different number than what Caltrans has, and it's pretty detailed. They have copies of it. I don't need to go into it here, but what we're asking for here is consideration for a left turn pocket or a wider spot that's safe, and a simple 36-inch or culvert, because we're not quite sure. Caltrans did a water study, and about 400 feet, they said there was about 200,000 second feet of water goes over that highway when it's flooding. That's a lot of water. I'm not sure it's that much, but I don't know what kind of culvert, but I think a culvert in a low spot would totally eliminate any of that problem, eliminate flooding of the road. We've had a couple of meetings in Oakland. We've made some progress on the trees. There is progress. We're not fighting over the dollars. We're just fighting to get the project done correctly and safely. Now, if anybody wants to see any of the pictures, I have pictures of the accidents. As a matter of fact, your Caltrans individual was up Friday, and we were able to show him the actual accident on our camera. And that's available if somebody wants to see it. Does anybody want to see any pictures or have any questions?
Yeah, are there any questions?
I'd like to see the pictures.
You'd like to see the pictures?
Just have them pass them down.
They're like flooding, Caddy Lane, Nurse Road. They're impacted.
Do I understand you correctly that you have two items that you're mainly concerned about, is the left turn pocket and the flooding?
Yes.
Is that the only
Those are the
two
two
items?
key items. There's some other stuff that can be worked out. To give you an idea, what we offered Caltrans.
Mr. Chairman, can I interrupt for just a second? Those items, to me, are related to project design and not in the purview of the commission on this property. So can I ask Bijan to address, just as a courtesy to this gentleman, the issue about the flooding and explain to us what we're doing with the left turn lane and the safety issue? But I want to emphasize that that's not under the purview of the commission to go back and redesign. This is about necessity, whether this project can be done in a way that is less intrusive to this gentleman. Those are the issues that we need to consider, and they're in our purview in the statute. So I don't want to get too far afield. But Bijan, would you address those issues? Because I am concerned about that. I've asked Mr. Trippy to respond to me, please.
Before Bijan gets up
Okay.
there, if I can, when Will was director, SR 12 had one of the worst safety records of any state highway we have. I mean, and I think we are doing a number of safety improvements along SR 12, but I think a CHP officer just got killed recently out there. It is a very, very dangerous road, and I hope that you guys took into consideration the safety aspects of it, whether it's a private road, public road, et cetera. I have a few questions of the property owner when you're done, Bijan.
The question on the flooding, as indicated on this map, we have Well Creek that comes down and crosses the highway at this location. This is where the culvert is. This, however, is where the low point is, and hence the flooding in this area. The greater flooding that occurs is actually a 100-year flood that covers this entire section. And if I can go to slide, can I go to slide 12? Number 12. This is actually the larger 100-year flood from the FEMA map. So there is flooding in this area. The culvert is not at the low point. That's where the creek actually crosses the highway. The low point is further to the east. And as part of the project, we are trying to keep the profile of the road exactly where it is within this flood zone and not raise it. That's why we're just grinding and replacing the pavement. And so the flooding that is occurring is going to continue to occur. And if we were to put a culvert at the low point, we would be draining that seasonal wetland, which gets us to a number of environmental issues. So that's number one. The issue of the left turn is actually at this location, westbound direction on Highway 12 into Caddy property. We have the accident report at this location. There was one accident. Both of them were rear end, one accident in 2006 and one in August of 2012. So between 2006 and 2012, there's been two accidents at this location, left turn into Caddy Lane, which is a private property, and by policy, the department does not include the left turn pocket into private properties. And we actually did see the video that was provided to us last Friday of the latest accident, which was in August of 2012. There are about 8 cars per hour that make the left turn into Caddy property. That's from the observation. We did do an operational analysis throughout this corridor within the project limit back in September. We did a supplemental of that analysis, and basically we've designed the project to address the safeties that were identified as part of the traffic and operational analysis that was done.
Thank you, Bijan.
Yep, for the property owner.
I'd like to make a comment, which I forgot to say. We approached Caltrans, if you have the ranch here, getting in and out of the driveway of the ranch is almost impossible when the traffic's there. It's a very unsafe situation. It's going to be worse. But we suggested, okay, why don't we just close off the driveway to the ranch? Because I don't use it very much myself. If I'm turning right, I do. There's a road between the ranch and the industrial property. It's on that other map. We go out that as a gravel road. So we said, okay, why don't you just close it off, put your guardrails up, and we'll use the other road. All Caltrans has to do is buy a few loads of gravel, fix our road, and we're happy. If in exchange we get a left turn pocket, so everybody can go in and out of there. Very few people come in and out of the main driveway, so and it's going to even be worse when it's that close into the house. And that was not accepted or even discussed.
Well,
But as far as the comment,
let me ask you a couple of questions first.
Okay.
All right, I mean, we heard your presentation and I appreciate it. How long have you had a use permit for the industrial park?
Probably 69 or 70.
So a long time. And the traffic counts have been building up over the years here, haven't they?
After they fixed the road, the other part, improved it, put the dividers in, the traffic has really gotten more.
Yeah, I've got some concern about why we're not doing a left-hand turn lane here, personally, because I think the traffic is just going to get worse. This is a major goods movement corridor that goes from 80 all the way over to Interstate 5. It's not going to get any better. And I'm confused by your last statement about some gravel road. Can you tell me where that is?
Can you back up on where you got both the ranch and the... This is the ranch, it's the highway, this road right here. It goes down and comes out to the industrial park. I put that road in about 8-9 years ago, gravel, and I did it because we go in and out that way, it's a lot safer. My kids come and go, and it is safe.
Instead of going out your driveway, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why it doesn't really hurt us if we give up the driveway. It's actually going to be better for us. But the concern about the design, it would be wonderful if Caltrans came to us before they designed it. It's got nothing to do with the design. We weren't talked to, we were told. And when these people come out and throw it on the hood of your car and say, this is what we're going to do, after the fact, that's wrong. And it's been wrong right from the start. They've had no input from us, and the input we got, they've shined us on. If it's designed right in the first place and they got the correct input, I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be tying up everybody's time. So you got any more comments on the design?
May I ask another question?
Yes.
Is it your contention that the flooding was caused from something that Caltrans did or the state in any way?
Well, over the years, I grew up there, and over the years they paved the road, they put pavement on the road keeps getting higher and higher. So in the old days, according to my dad and the rest of the water just runs over the road, it doesn't back up. But the property on our side that shows that green area, I don't know who calls it a wetlands because the federal wetlands is on the other side of the road. And if it is a wetlands, then we do not know that as a property owner.
Right.
But over the period of time, the road has probably been raised 2 feet, 3 feet.
Over a period, what period of time?
Well, it was put in the 20s.
Okay.
And,
I think that answers my question.
Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Edmund?
I too share concerns about an industrial park, and 25 to 28% truck traffic is pretty high volume of truck traffic. So, John, have you looked at any other solutions? And, you know, when we mix cars and trucks, and this is a goods movement, as Commissioner Gometti said, it's a corridor there. So have you all really looked at what else we could do? Because we have some irregular lines going there, too, in terms of the easements.
Well, I want to explain one thing, that McPherson Crane and Reagan, those are 200-ton cranes, and they're huge, and to get them started and stopped, it's not necessarily the cars coming behind you, but the ones going east is just a steady string of cars, and they have to wait because it takes them a long time to get across the road.
With respect to the improvements in this corridor, we've been actually working for a number of years. As Commissioner Gilmedi mentioned, there's been quite a number of accidents in the entire Solano 12, and Mr. Caddy has actually been on the safety committee for this route in the county. We have been investing in this corridor. This is a two-lane road that was built back in the 20s. It was built for agriculture traffic, and now we're getting much more traffic in this corridor. We've been improving this by widening, adding shoulders, left turn pockets at the public roads, and also adding signal on the western portion of the corridor. There's also studies underway with the Solano Transportation Authority with respect to the ultimate look of this corridor, all the way to San Joaquin County. So those studies, the MIS is ongoing, which would come up with future improvements, potentially additional lanes in this corridor. But at the present time, this is a two-lane road, and we're trying to manage the traffic within those two lanes with adding median barriers in certain areas that it can accommodate. We have soft barriers that we've installed. We have delineators that we've installed. And we're widening and providing standard shoulders and standard width lanes in the corridor for the existing two-lane highway. So those are the improvements that we're doing. As part of this project, as was mentioned earlier, there are actually 3 locations. We are putting left turn lanes in these locations as part of this project, and we have also added left turns other locations west of this project limit as part of other projects that we've done. So we are investing in the corridor, but as with respect to the left turn pocket at Caddy Lane, it is a private driveway, and by policy, we do not provide for left turn pockets to private driveways.
Question?
Yes.
Two questions. The first one, Bijan, to that point, Maud's Lane is one where you did add a left turn lane to a private road, and the object of that, I looked at the picture, was for access to the Railroad Museum, which is interesting because the picture shows that the Railroad Museum is the opposite side of the street of where you added the left turn lane. So that is one issue that I'm struggling with.
There are 2 locations where we have added, which were brought to our attention with respect to a private road that does have left turn pocket.
Yes, Nurse Slough Lane was
Nurse
one.
Slough Lane and
Maud's
Maud Lane.
Road.
The Nurse Slough Lane was a public road back in 1993.
Right. I have it in the staff report, but I'm asking on Maud's Lane.
On Maud's Lane, we do have a non-exclusive easement, roadway easement on that. With that, others could actually use that. It is non-inclusive, so we do have an easement on that private road. And that's why we could actually do a left turn pocket at that location.
Okay, well, all right. The second question then is there any reason why we have to act today on this? Is there any reason why you couldn't spend some more time working with the landowner on possibly resolving, certainly from my aspect, the safety issue concerning a left turn lane for the industrial park. That's really compelling to me.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is part of our safety program that we're doing on Highway 12, and we've completed our environmental process. We've completed our design. We're here to ask for a resolution. There are 17 properties, 16 of them are resolved. This is the last property that we need in order to actually provide the safety that is proposed for this portion of the Route 12 in Solano, and that's why we are here to ask for a resolution of necessity.
It's the last project, but is there some kind of deadline?
It is the last property.
Excuse me, the last property. But is there some deadline that you're hitting up against?
It's a safety project, so deadlines are set by us.
Thank you.
Yes.
Question, Bijan, have you talked to the property owner about cost sharing on a left turn lane into their industrial?
Given that our policy is not to contribute funds to a private left turn pocket into a private driveway, we have not talked about that.
Did you contact them to see if they're willing to pay for that left turn lane?
We have discussed that, but that would be something that the property owner would have to actually pay for. So there has not
Are they
been...
willing to pay for that?
We were asked, they said it would be estimated a minimum of $300,000, and we're not in that league. So, but there's got to be a way to resolve this, and the number one thing is the safety, and you know, if
Would you get closer to the mic, please?
I'm sorry. The number one thing is the safety of that turn, and I do know that there's a lot more accidents reported. My caretaker, his truck was totaled there, run into from behind. But I'm going to show you something that this map shows. Right here is a stoplight for the Trilogy. And the traffic backs up from here all the way to that stoplight on Fridays when you can't make that turn. So that is a problem, and there's been a few accidents at the stoplight also. There was one other thing that, let's see, what was your question, whether we were willing to compensate? Yeah. No, I would say at this time, we're not in a position to go into business with Caltrans with a minimum payment and end up with a $600,000 bill. You got to watch budgets, and we do anyway. So we're a little bit nervous about that.
Yeah. Andre, do you have something?
I think, Mr. Chair, you've heard the arguments from both sides. It is really the Commission's pleasure as to whether you move forward with the approval of the resolution of necessity or whether you want to defer it until a
Does the
different.
resolution necessarily give them opportunity to negotiate further? On this issue?
One thing I need to maybe go back and say that I have to remind you of the three things that you're looking at here. So if you like, I can repeat them.
Yes, because I see that the...
Okay, let me repeat them, and I'm going to be really reading them slowly here. So first one is whether the public interest and necessity require the proposed project.
Yes.
I think you can decide on that one. The second one is whether the proposed project is planned and located in a manner that is most compatible with the greatest public good and least private injury.
That's what we're struggling
Right?
with.
So that's what you're struggling with.
Right.
And whether the property to be condemned is necessary for the proposed project. You're not really debating the dollar value of this transaction in any way, shape, or form here. You're really deciding whether those three conditions are met for you to take your action. So with that in mind, I believe Mr. Commissioner Alvarado has a question.
Commissioner Alvarado?
We get that. But when you and I don't think there's anybody in this room that doesn't understand the issues that we have on Highway 12. So, when you don't have a timeline, because it's a safety corridor and we're working our way through this, you have to look inside yourself and say, okay, are we setting this up for a dangerous intersection? So, before we take a vote here, and I think you can see where the concern is on this commission, before we take a vote, is Caltrans, is this going to be an all or nothing thing? Do you have any room to negotiate? And I guess that's my question to Bijan. If there's any room for negotiations and you say no, then that impacts our decision here today. If you come to the microphone and you say we can look at it and work on it a little bit, then that tells us which way we want to go. I have concerns. Whenever and this is probably the only place on Highway 12 that the houses are this close to the road.
Right.
There's duck clubs there. There's all kinds of different things there where, it's not a simple left-hand turn lane. I mean, left-hand turn. There's early morning traffic. There's commute traffic. There's all these different things that go on that Nurse Road little area right there. So I guess my question to the department is this is all or nothing thing? Are you prepared to take no for an answer?
Obviously, whatever the decision is today, we are going to continue our negotiation with the property owner on these matters and other issues that were not even discussed here. So that negotiation will continue.
But that didn't answer my question. If you're asking me today to approve a resolution of necessity, does then the negotiation stop?
No, it doesn't.
No.
So, but humor me here, Bijan, okay? I'm not a very bright man.
Says
Are we
the
going to
fox to
seriously
the-
look at alternatives if we approve this net resolution of necessity today?
Yes, we will.
Because I'm going to just be honest with you, I'm prepared to vote no.
As I mentioned, we will continue our discussion and negotiation on this matter and others that we didn't discuss here.
I got Jim, Commissioner Arp.
Just an observation. I'm, as others on this commission, am very familiar with that stretch of road. I've traveled it many times. I have an office manager that lives in Trilogy, and she commutes to my office every day. As recently as this morning, she sent me an email and asked if she could wait until it got to be daylight because the fog was so dense that she was afraid to travel on I-12. We are spending a lot of time, money, resources to make 12 as safe as we can. We cannot make that road perfectly safe as long as it stays a two-lane road, but we're doing what we can. It seems to me, just from a simple point of view, I don't know much about the policy that Caltrans has about where they make left turn lanes and where they don't. If that's strictly driven by financial considerations, or if there's legislation behind it, or what. But if it's just a policy that Caltrans has developed within house, I have to think that if you look at over the time and the potential for accidents, that's where a lot of people get killed. It's when you're waiting to turn left on a highway that's well traveled, a lot of people going, and there's fog or other obstruction, and you slam into somebody from the rear. It doesn't take very many of those to compensate for for whatever would be spent on making that road a little safer. So I just have to look at it. I'm kind of where Commissioner Alvarado is. If our vote today is to pass the resolution of necessity and Caltrans treats that as leverage to go ahead and just move forward, then I'm not going to be there.
Commissioner Gilmetti?
Yeah, I'll go back to Bijan. You know, if this was just a ranch road going in and Mr. Canty wanted a left-hand turn lane to accommodate his ranch, I wouldn't be very sympathetic towards him. But as he stated earlier, this industrial park was built in 1969, and it's been active for a long time, and that traffic has increased dramatically during that period of time. And I will venture to say that in his 60s or 70s, it wasn't really a problem to make left-hand turn lanes through there. But the traffic counts have gone up so dramatically, I think it's become a very dangerous situation. And I'm with Commissioner Arp and Commissioner Alvarado. You know, I would like you guys seriously to consider a design change.
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner?
Is there anything from staff that would preclude this commission's ability to defer this matter to March 5th at our next commission hearing to enable the parties to continue their discussion?
Before I answer that question, Mr. Chair, Mr. Land has a comment.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I can't see down at that end.
That's okay. Just add some perspective on what Mr. Sartipi said as far as policy. We've got 2-lane roads all over the state with private connections. Some are businesses that are private road connections. Some are entrances into houses or farms. And so the issue that he brings up that is an issue relative to a safety project is, are we going to provide left-hand turn lanes into private property? Because again, we have this all over the state. So that's what the policy is based on. So that's the position that the department finds itself in. In this situation, we're widening the shoulders. And so is it safer? Well, maybe, because now the shoulder's wider, but it doesn't provide a left-hand turn connection. And as a matter of our policy in general situations like this, we don't provide left turn lanes. So that's just to add some perspective on why we are where we are on this particular issue.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
If I may answer Commissioner Dunn's question, it really depends on what the footprint of the project becomes as to whether the project can remain on schedule or not, because you may have to deal with other issues related to environment, right-of-way, acquisition beyond what was proposed right now. So it is a safety project. The department wants to move forward with a safety project. The project as is right now doesn't really take these additional things into consideration. So it's a matter of, can we move with this project and possibly, reach an agreement to follow up with another project. Those become really department's decisions to present to you to give you that comfort level, if you would.
Well, but there is an option to just close the whole thing off altogether.
Right, and yes. So,
and we were just told that, well, we don't build private gravel roads.
Right.
Well, if you're going to mitigate a safety issue,
right.
You do the road the first time and you turn it over to them and say, okay, now this is your access to not only your ranch but to your
industrial park.
Industrial park, and then now it's up to you. But in the meantime, we've actually solved the bigger problem on Highway 12, but we don't need a left turn lane.
So delaying the action.
There's some options here, but I'm not sure we're taking advantage of all those options.
So delaying the action to look at those alternatives where the impacts are not really as great on the project life cycle, is an option you should consider in your decision making.
And I think that's where I was headed, is that I'd rather keep the parties on parity with each other as opposed to risking a denial. Here, commissioners have concern about the safety aspect of this, and with 45 days of delay, that is not a great as perhaps a denial of the request or the resolution. So with that, unless there's any other questions, I would...
I have a question.
Okay, great.
From Bijan, you said the other 16 parcels you've already resolved. How many of those would also want a left turn lane? Are there any other circumstances that if we if you put a left turn lane here, that we would need to address those other parcels.
I don't think that would be the issue, no.
Okay.
There's not 16 park areas. And they aren't all signed. I represent one of my neighbors because I lease the ranch. We have street into her. So she's a very elderly lady, and she just wants to do the right thing for the right reason. And that's all we want to do. I think there's 6 parcels here. Across the street, next door. There's 2 across the street, next door, and then 2 on Azevedo Road. Lynn and Vieira.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Given the time that we're facing here and the constraints today, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we just simply delay action on this item until the March meeting, and I would like to encourage the department, realizing that part of this is a much bigger safety issue, a discussion about Highway 12, to talk to this property owner and other owners about ways that we can mitigate the safety issue that's been raised here about this traffic going into this industrial park, given the constraints that we have on Highway 12, and then come back and see if we can do something. It doesn't have to, in my mind, it doesn't have to just be a left turn lane. It could be signage. It can be other things. But let's think out of the box here.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me ask a question. In other words, it's postponed for the next meeting you have here?
March.
The next meeting is on March 5th, and it will be in San Francisco.
Okay, but this type of meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and one other question I wanted to ask, I forgot, I just saw my notes. If the project does not put a left turn lane in, who accepts the liability down the road? Does Caltrans carry that? My attorney tells me that we'll have to have a letter from Caltrans accepting any liability, because if my family, one of my kids...
We can't negotiate for the state. You'll have to talk directly to Caltrans in your negotiations.
Okay, but the liability is a problem there that I'm concerned about.
Well, you can
because
discuss...
you have another period of time to discuss that and other issues with Caltrans. That's what we're giving you today.
Okay, well, thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Thank you. Item number 2.
3. We don't want to do 2 again.
3, I'm sorry, 3.
I know.
Any of the property owners here today on...
We knew we were going to not be able to make it.
Any property owners are legal here today on
Gravel road, he catches in.
item number 3?
I don't mean the left turn, I mean the gravel road.
Let me introduce it, and maybe that will trigger a response. Item number 3 is a resolution necessity related to a property on Route 4 in San Joaquin County. You asked if there is a representative of Mr. Toledo in the audience, and I will repeat that. So if there is a representative of Mr. Toledo's property, nobody? Okay. So there is no, this is supposed to be an appearance hearing. Since there is no representation by the property owner, I will introduce the topic and then turn it over to the District 10 Director, and then you can take whatever action you want to go from there, whether you want to base your decision on Caltrans's presentation. So just keeping in mind that the same instructions apply from item number 2 related to those 3 items that you need to consider, and it's not a compensation issue. This item is an appearance at the request of Stephen Harum, attorney for property owners Charles Toledo. The property in question consists of 1.97 acres zoned for industrial use. The property is impacted by a $98.1 million freeway expansion project financed with Proposition 1B Trade Corridor Improvement Fund and San Joaquin County Measure K funds on state route in the city of Stockton. The department needs approximately 0.2 acre in roadway easement and 0.04 acre in temporary construction easement to construct additional travel lanes and sidewalks along Navy Drive. property owner contends his ability to operate his business on a 24/7 basis will be impacted by construction, and the reconfigured truck movement on the remaining property will deprive him of needed parking for refrigerated storage trailers. The department has committed to providing 24/7 access to the property during construction and parking for the refrigerated storage trailers. We have received, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, a letter from the attorney representing the property owner, and we made that available to you through email as well as I believe it is in your packet. However, I'm going to turn this over now to Caltrans District 10 Director Carrie Bowen to make the presentation on behalf of the department related to this property. Ms. Bowen?
Okay, I was just a little bit confused. I thought if they weren't here, we still go through the presentation. That's the pleasure of the board.
Commissioners?
We know why they're not here?
Commissioners want to
It's up
see
to
it?
you.
No, not necessary.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So with that, staff recommends approval.
I move staff recommendation.
Second?
Although, oh, wait a minute, we got to take a call
Yeah,
on,
roll call.
have to take a roll call on the votes on this.
Commissioner Alvarado?
Yes.
Commissioner Sini?
Yes.
Commissioner Burke?
Aye.
Commissioner Dunn?
Yes.
Commissioner Art?
Yes.
Commissioner Cromer? Commissioner Gildetti?
Aye.
Commissioner Gardino?
Aye.
Commissioner Inman?
Yes.
Commissioner Waring?
Yes.
Chair Tavoloni?
Aye. Thank you. And we'll move on to.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item number 6. Have we have any commission reports? Do we have any commission reports?
Yes, just
Commissioner Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just two quick items. One, I wanted to share with the Commission that Ontario International Airport approved a business plan yesterday to assume sort of an executive summary to assume operations from the Los Angeles airport as they continue their negotiations to return local control of Ontario Airport to Ontario. So that's point one. Second thing, I just wanted to commend, I know as funding, we're going to hear a lot of presentations from Caltrans today. I just want to give a shout out to new District 12 Director Ryan Chamberlain, who issued a newsletter this past week that not only taught Caltrans people, which you guys all know, but taught about the lack of funding for projects. The newsletter was so good, it was disseminated as well to the broader District 12 public community, including business groups. And it also was a call for action from the district director looking for efficiencies and effectiveness within the district themselves. So I just have to commend Ryan for really stepping out and doing the call to action that we know as funding gets constrained. And I'd love to be able to tout all of the district directors' good efforts within their districts at Caltrans as our funding continues to be a problem. So thank you for that.
Commissioner, getting back to the Ontario Airport, is there a drop-dead date that they're supposed to come in with their agreement?
They're looking at, the LAX system was looking at June to come in with I guess, a proposal, but we know that they're working on a counter offer now.
Yes.
So.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, could
Yes.
I just ask Commissioner Dunn if she could forward that newsletter to
I
the
would be
Commission?
delighted
I'd like to see it.
I'd be delighted to send that. It's awesome.
All right, we'll move on to item number 7, Commissioners' Meeting of Compensation. Are there any changes or omissions or anything on that we need changed?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 8 is the big day. I would like to entertain any folks that may want to nominate some of the good folks that are sitting up here today, and I will turn that over to whoever may want to. Oh, I got the man right next to me that's going to come in with something. Commissioner?
Mr. Chairman, in recognition of the excellent job that you have done for us this year, I'd like to nominate someone I think can continue that tradition, and that would be Jim Gilmetti.
I'd like to second that motion.
Oh, we have, I don't know.
Is that what he's saying?
Is there anyone in here that would like to change that in any way? You have some time?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like
All
to hear
those
the
in favor?
campaign.
Aye.
The campaign. Where's the campaign, Mr. Chairman?
Nominations are closed.
Commissioner Dunn wants to be schmoozed. Where's
I
the
would like
ads?
to have nominations for the
Streamers.
Vice President or Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to nominate our distinguished colleague, Mr. Gardino.
Second.
Position of Vice Chair.
All those, think twice now. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce to you the Italian duo for the year
Well, we kept the string going.
13 to 14. You're just ending up with the duo 2 or 3, whatever we were, but you are now again with a couple of in part of the East instead of Italian, or I don't like to use the word WAP, but then they also use the word Guinea. So if you haven't heard that, that's something new for you.
I think we need to start watching our vows.
Okay, that's great. That's the best thing I've heard today. Now we'll move on to. I guess we're going to skip Brian. Is not able to be here today, and we'll move right into Rick Lamb with the Caltrans.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Rick Land, Chief Deputy Director for Caltrans, and I'm here today in place of Director Malcolm Doherty, who is actually down in Southern California for the groundbreaking of the Gerald Desmond Bridge Replacement Project. Something that we've been working hard on together with the Port of Long Beach, a project that's about $950 million in a bridge replacement project, which is now underway. So we're really happy about that. Over the last several months, we've been working on filling key Caltrans executive manager positions, and last month we finally
Notice how steady that hand is.
appointed a new chief engineer and deputy director for project delivery, and Carla Setliff is here, so congratulations to Carla Setliff. And during the time that I was acting as chief deputy, and then since my appointment, Bob Pipolo, who was the division chief for Division of Engineering Services, was serving as chief engineer and did a great job in doing that. So I really want to thank Bob. Bob was here earlier, but had to leave. So we want to really thank Bob for his outstanding work and dedication as chief engineer during the past year and a half. Bob's going to be returning to his role as the division chief for the Division of Engineering Services, which is the group that manages our structures area, construction, materials testing, and our structure foundations. So thanks to Bob. Just a little bit about Carla. She has been over at the Division of Engineering Services for the previous 3 months leading up to this, so she spent some time over there. Over the past 11 years, she's been the division chief for a number of other divisions, including design, traffic operations, and then most recently project management. And then she served down in District 8 as a district director for a time where we're backfilling that position. She's a licensed civil engineer, graduated from UC Davis, although I don't hold that against her, being a Sac State grad myself. But she's been with Caltrans for 26 years. And we're both, Malcolm and I, are really looking forward, as well as the rest of the executive team, in working with Carla in her new assignment. And she's a great addition to the Caltrans executive management team. So congratulations, Carla.
She must have started when she was 8 years old.
I know.
Yeah, that was 7. She told me she started at 7.
Carla, why don't you stand up? I don't think everybody knows you're here. Both Malcolm and I have worked with Carla very closely over the last several years, and we're really pleased to have her on the executive management team. Yesterday, many of you heard about a big commercial tanker that ran into one of the piers in the west spans of the Bay Bridge, and our engineers were on it immediately. We've got fenders, of course, around those big piers, and luckily the damage was only to the fenders, and it only pierced the outer hull of the tanker, and so there was no leakage of oil. But anyway, just to let you know that we were on top of that, and there was no danger at any time to the traveling public on that route. I'd also like to inform the commission that we've started meeting with representatives from BT&H, from agency, and the Self-Help Counties Coalition in an efficiencies campaign specific to state and local partnering in the areas of transportation operations and in project delivery. So this is something that we're just starting to pull together, and is actually one of the things that we recognized in our program review. So as we work through this effort with the Self-Help Counties Coalition, we'll certainly keep you updated on the progress. Finally, there's several presentations on this month's agenda from the department. January of every odd year means presentations of the fund estimate and the 10-year SHOP plan. So this month we'll be happy to bring forward the overview of the 2014 fund estimate and the 2013 10-year SHOP. Looking forward to good discussions as we present the California Transportation Plan, specifically the long-range plans that are integrated under the umbrella of the California Transportation Plan that provides a comprehensive and multimodal vision for California's future transportation system. And then also today we're going to be doing an overview of the highway safety and the bridge programs to give you a perspective of some of the issues we're working through in the implementation of the new federal legislation, MAP 21. So look forward to those discussions and be willing to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? All righty, thank you. We'll move on to item number 11, and it looks to me like I haven't seen that Italian fellow around any place today. So, I have someone.
Yes.
The last name, please. That's all I.
Peter Osborne.
Well, you can sit down again.
Yes, hello. It is my pleasure to be before the Commission. Once again, I had the opportunity to be introduced by Vince at a prior meeting, and at that time I introduced myself. I'm Peter Osborne with the Federal Railroad Administration, part of USDOT, and I'm here permanently full-time for the California High-Speed Rail project. And I do appreciate, I know Vince had asked that you all would have an agenda item for us now as a USDOT, so we could come to you as USDOT and at times like this, when Vince is otherwise committed, one or both of us would be able to present before you. So I appreciate that. Unfortunately, I got to tell you, I'm just not as animated, and I don't have any jokes for you like Vince would. So I apologize for that if you were looking for some if you were looking for some entertainment in this section. But yeah, Vince does send his regards. And as was mentioned, Vince is currently, today, he is down at the General Desmond Bridge with our FHWA administrator, Victor Mendez, for that groundbreaking event. So that's a wonderful event, and we're really pleased about that. I'll be very brief. Just give you a very quick update in terms of some things that I'm working on here locally with FRA. As I mentioned when I had come before you all in the past, my main focus here is to work directly with the California High-Speed Rail Authority and work on the implementation and the delivery of the High-Speed Rail project. We are looking forward to the receipt of the proposals for our first construction package for the initial operating segment, CP1, on January 18th. And we are on track and looking forward to begin construction later this year. And one other thing that I'll share in terms of items of recent that you might have heard about that had happened yesterday from USDOT, this one being an FTA event. Secretary Ray LaHood was in Sacramento yesterday, joined by FTA Administrator Peter Rogoff, California Congresswoman Doris Matsui, and Mayor Kevin Johnson, and other state and local officials. This was a signing event for the $135 million grant to extend the Sacramento light rail to the south. So we're pleased to work with you all as partners in all these different modes of transportation. And that ends my report. And thank you very much.
Any questions? I will personally talk to Vince as quickly as I can and tell him that his name may not appear on this, on the next go-round.
There we go.
Thank
That's
you very
good.
much.
That's good. I'll share that with him, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item
Mr.
number...
Chair?
Pardon me?
Could I-
Yes.
I, too, want to add my congratulations on the Gerald Desmond Bridge, and it is an excused absence for Vince and Malcolm. But I want to ask Bimla, can you send around to our partners our meeting schedule? Because many of us here would love to be able to celebrate when we
Yes.
do get to launch a
Commissioner
project.
Inman,
So
prior
very
to
sad.
you, Commissioner Dunn, and Commissioner Waring arriving, we talked about our 2013 meeting schedule. I will be resending that out to everyone.
Any other questions? Thank you. Item number 12, local reports. Will, Sharon, and Andy.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Tavaloni and members of the Commission. Will Ritter with the San Joaquin Council of Governments. On behalf of the Regional Transportation Planning Agencies, the RTPA group met this morning with staff from Caltrans, the CTC, and FHWA to discuss several items that are also on the Commission's agenda this afternoon. One of those in particular is the 2014 STIP fund estimate, and while it's recognized that this is still a forthcoming item for identifying those revenues, it's recognized that it's coming at the heels of the end of the Prop 1B program, and I think a lot of the regions recognize that there's concern about continued transportation funding and the interest to work collectively towards developing transportation funding options. There's also recognition, as will be identified in the report, that there's also a need for additional funding into project delivery and development to ensure that we have projects ready for funding opportunities that present themselves. With respect to local assistance project delivery, as will be reported later, there was an item on the Highway Safety Improvement Program, and the regions recognize that while there's a lot of uncertainty as far as how the second year of MAP 21 will identify how funds flow to the HSIP program, this is a priority area for us all statewide, and the regions support continued efforts to promote HSIP project delivery. One of those in particular is the regions are committed to working with the state to advance HSIP project delivery, including programming of additional HSIP projects in the outer years of the FTIP or beyond the FTIP period, with a new call for projects. And then lastly, just to note that the RTPA group is convening a working group with staff from the CTC as well as Caltrans to explore opportunities to better focus the use of federal funds on fewer projects to help streamline federal aid project delivery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Tavaloni, Executive Director Reinhardt, and Commissioners. Sharon Scherzinger, Executive Director, El Dorado County Transportation Commission, Chair of the Rural Counties Task Force. We have not had any meetings since the last commission meeting of the Rural Counties Task Force. However, our membership has been busy. We've been actively involved in the needs assessment. The two areas that were highlighted, one in terms of developing efficiencies, we feel very strongly about that with the rural agencies having small staff, as well as the cities and counties that we work with. Efficiencies are critical to us, as well as the focusing of federal dollars on the larger projects. The other area that we're interested in, we've been meeting on the implementation of MAP 21 with the Business, Transportation, and Housing Agency, trying to inform aspects of the administration's proposal, as well as meeting with legislative staff. There are a couple areas that we want to make sure that folks are aware of. One of it which is there still seems to be a strong focus on having formulas that strictly rely on population in terms of the STP program. We would appreciate if the transportation system would also be part of those formulas, so we represent both things. And then, as Will indicated, we have our ongoing projects that we're working on. And with the HSIP, the federal HSIP program, we were pleased to hear this afternoon that local assistance is recommending having a cycle 6 so that those projects can continue to move forward as we're trying to negotiate the implementation of MAP 21 here in the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Andy Chesley. I'm the Executive Director of the San Joaquin Council of Governments and acting this year as the Chair for the Self-Help Counties Coalition. We were fortunate, contingent of us, to meet on December 11th with Acting Secretary Kelly, Deputy Secretary Annis, and with Caltrans Director Doherty to go over our proposal, which I believe is being delivered to you right now, our partnership proposal with the Department of Transportation. This was put together by a subcommittee of the South Oak Counties Coalition, chaired by Doug Failing of LAMTA, and is meant to address ways in which the department and the South Oak Counties Coalition can work together in terms of streamlining, building better relationships, and improving the way we partner together. And as a follow-up to that, in 2 weeks, as Mr. Land commented earlier, a contingent of the South Oak Counties Coalition will be meeting with Caltrans, an internal team, management team, to go over some of these and work on some of the specifics associated with this. We anticipate that the communication that Acting Secretary Kelly has fostered with the South Oak Counties Coalition will continue, and we're looking forward to building upon this as we prepare this particular legislative session. Now, one of the top priorities for us this year is to work on the threshold for passage of half-cent sales taxes. There is a bill presently in the legislature to reduce the threshold for transportation sales taxes from 2/3 to 55%. A number of agencies, such as Kern, Ventura, have attempted in the past to achieve this, and this has been a significant roadblock to their being able to achieve it. Counties such as Merced and Stanislaus have come very close, and I think in the last election we saw where counties rich in transportation sales tax history, such as Alameda and Los Angeles, also experienced the challenge of being able to achieve that very, very high and to some extent unrealistic threshold of 2/3 to pass a half-cent sales tax for transportation-related purposes. This is our top priority. We reached out this last a couple months ago and invited NAPA to become our 20th member of the South Oak Counties Coalition, and we're looking not just to be able to bring greater transportation opportunities to people in counties that already have a transportation sales tax, but to bring some of those who have been struggling in the wilderness to get a half-cent sales tax passed. That concludes my remarks. Thank you very much.
Any question? Thank you. Item number 15.
Commissioners, agenda item 15 is state and legislative matters. The state legislature convened on December 3rd for an organizational session and returned from winter recess on January 7th to begin the first year of a 2-year session. Attachment A in your book provides a tentative schedule of the legislative session. Staff is currently monitoring 5 state bills that are consistent with the Commission's criteria for monitoring legislation. These bills are identified in Attachment B to the book item. Staff would like to note that H.R. 6662, federal legislation listed on Attachment B to establish a road user fee pilot program, was, while introduced during December, was not enacted on, and so therefore it'll move forward. It may be reintroduced. Staff will be monitoring for that within the next session. As shown on Attachment B, Senate Constitutional Amendments SCA 4 was introduced by Senator Liu on December 3rd, and SCA 8 was introduced on December 14th by Senator Corbett. Both of these bills propose to lower the voter threshold from 2/3 to 55% for local government special taxes that would fund transportation projects. Both bills are materially the same, with the exception that the Liu bill specifies the use of funding for local transportation projects, and the Corbett bill specifies the use of funding just for transportation projects, drops the word local. Both SCA bills are almost identical to ACA 23, which did not make it out of the Assembly during the last session. The Commission during the last session did adopt a support position for ACA 23. Commissioners, as you know, and as we just heard from Andy Chesley, many counties have won majority votes for local transportation improvement sales taxes, but were unable to make the 2/3 requirement. Lowering the voter threshold to pass sales tax measures would greatly enhance the opportunities for local initiated funding that will reduce highway congestion improve public transportation, and assist in funding critical needs of the state. Staff recommends that the Commission adopt a support position for lowering the voter threshold and send letters of support to Senators Lieu and Corbett. Given the differences between the two bills, staff would also recommend that the Commission encourage the authors to provide for a broad definition of transportation projects for the use of funding that's generated by a lower voter threshold.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move that we support both SCA 4 and SCA 8 and adopt staff's recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Susan. Item number 16.
Commissioners, item 16 is an overview of the 2014 fund estimate. Stephen Keck from Caltrans will be making the presentation.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Stephen Keck with Caltrans Budgets. So today I'm going to go through an overview of the fund estimate, where we're going to go from here, talk about what the responsibilities of the department are, and some of the things we'd like to see from the Commission and Commission staff as we move forward with the fund estimate. So the first thing I want to talk about, and I touched on this very briefly at my last presentation in December, but the fund estimate is a very, very important document that really lays out a 5-year projection of resources reasonably expected to be available for transportation, and it becomes the basis for the size of both the STIP and the SHOP, which are, of course, two of the more important things that this department does. The fund estimate is required by law. It's required to be prepared biennially in each odd year. And as I mentioned briefly, it sets the size of the STIP and the SHOP and essentially provides the amount that can be programmed in each of those programs. Just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, the 2012 fund estimate, some of you participated in it and some of you may never have seen before, is this fine document here with a picture of the project of the year on the cover long before it was the project of the year. This is the Armageddon, as they called it, before it was the project of the year. So the fund estimate in 2012 projected a capacity for the SHOP of about $10 billion over that 5-year period, $2 billion a year, and about $3.5 billion for the STIP, $700 million a year. So really what we're talking about here is a lot of money tied up in projects going forward, and really one of the more important things that I do in my role with the Commission, and I think affects just about everybody in the room. As I mentioned, the Commission will be providing guidance on the development of the fund estimate, both through these meetings that we're going to be having and through their staff. The Commission, I'll talk about it a little later, will be involved in developing the assumptions that will go into the fund estimate and obviously adopting the fund estimate itself. And what I didn't talk about, and I probably should make it very clear, the fund estimate is the very first step in the development of the STIP. It's part of the STIP cycle. And so the final product that comes out of this whole thing after my fund estimate is done and Mitch takes responsibility for the STIP part of it, is that the Commission submits the STIP to the legislature on April 1st of the even years. Here's a little chart that discusses some of the due dates that we're looking at. The legislation right now requires that the department submit a draft fund estimate to the Commission no later than July 15th of each odd year, and that the Commission adopt the fund estimate by August 15th of that year, and then again we have the submission of the STIP to the legislature the following year on April 1st. There are circumstances allowed in the law for delay of the fund estimate if there's some pending state or federal legislation that would have a significant impact on that fund estimate. We've done that a few times in the past. It seemed at one point that we were doing it every single time as we could not get a state budget on time. Hopefully that is a thing of the past. We don't anticipate at this point any need for delay. There's also an opportunity.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Stephen,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt you, but just looking at your calendar by statute and our calendar, is it at all a concern that we aren't meeting in July? We know that you need to do a draft FE. Did you want us to review it as information before we vote at our August meeting?
Okay, so I will, my very last slide does discuss how the two schedules link up. At this point, there is not a problem other than it makes me work very hard between May and June. But there are enough meetings between now and August to meet each of our deadlines.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So the fund estimate itself is a 5-year estimate of funds for both the STIP and the SHOP that we do every 2 years. And of course, the purpose of that is that nobody's very good at looking 5 years out in advance, especially any of the fund estimates that we did before the 2008 recession. You know, they were all doing this, and the ones afterwards were all doing this. So we have an opportunity every 2 years. We add 2 more years to the STIP funding. And we get to refresh our estimates. So there's overlap between 3 fund estimates and 3 steps each time. The major accounts that we're going to be looking at should be very familiar. The state highway account and the federal trust fund are our largest fund sources. As was mentioned by someone earlier, the bond funding is tapering off. So we anticipate that once again, state highway account and federal trust fund will become the majority fund sources in the transportation, or at least on the state side for transportation. The public transportation account has in the past provided significant resources for STIP transit funding. Beginning with the 2012 fund estimate, we're seeing that changing quite a bit as some of the uses for that funding have changed significantly, and much more of the funding goes directly to local transit agencies. And then finally, the remainder of Proposition 1B and possibly some new funds through Prop 1A as we move forward with the high-speed rail area. In terms of how the fund estimate is created, it is fairly prescribed by legislation. It requires that when we look at revenues, we assume only existing law. In other words, we can assume that the revenue we take in may change based on consumption of fuels, but we can't make an assumption that there will be an increase in the tax rate other than that which is already tied to the sales tax. And then the expenditures for the fund estimate are laid out in priority order in statute that you see here, taking into account the administration of the department, maintenance and operations, then the SHOP, local assistance, and STIP. Now, the STIP funding size is laid out in other law, so it's not like it's the dregs of what's left, but these are the priorities that are outlined in statute, and that's what we deal with when we do the fund estimate. To talk about how we do the fund estimate, we have this very simplified, believe me, very simplified chart that speaks to the cash flow methodology that we'll be using in preparing the fund estimate. We're starting with the beginning balance. We're talking about those anticipated revenues. What's it going to look like from here out? Are we going to see increases in mileage driven? Will that mean an increase in revenue, or will that be offset by increases in fuel economy? We need to look at non-program commitments. That's the support of the department. That's local assistance that's outlined, that's laid out in state law elsewhere. It's the maintenance of the highway system, and it's other, which includes people like me. And then, of course, we need to take into account the existing program commitments. How are those projects that we've already allocated going to spend moving forward? When we take those into account, we end up with what's available for programming over the next 5 years. And we use a cash flow model that's very similar to that we use in our annual presentations to the Commission on cash flow. In doing that, though, this little area in the middle, those anticipated revenues and commitments, are what our assumptions will impact. So as we move forward from here, and I'll talk about that in just a bit, we're going to be at a later meeting talking about assumptions and what we recommend, but that's where it will be impacted. And we've created recently this new chart. I will start by saying that this chart complies with all federal laws regarding the reduplication of a dollar bill. I made sure. But we made this chart to make it very clear on how we deal with cash flow projects. And I was really proud of this chart because it's one of our more innovative ones. But in this case, in any given year, we take a dollar that's spent at Caltrans. It's not a bond dollar. It's not a state dollar. It's the average of all dollars. 61 cents out of every dollar that we spend at Caltrans is spent towards a project that is already ongoing that was allocated by the Commission in a prior year. Could have been last year, could have been the year before, but 61 cents out of every dollar we spend, not just a project dollar, but every dollar we spend goes towards that. 14 cents out of every dollar we spend goes towards project support. That's the what we call COS, generally speaking. That's support for the projects that are already underway and support for projects that are yet to be underway, the projects that are in design. 13 cents out of every dollar goes to the maintenance and operations of the state highway system. 4 cents is support of the department and other. Again, that's folks like me, administration of the department. And in this case, that also includes something like our Amtrak contract that provides funding for the Amtrak up and down the state. And then this last piece in the end, and I know it's not the smallest piece, but the last piece on the end is 8 cents. In any given year, that's what's available to begin a new project with. So when we're dealing with the cash flows of the projects and we're dealing with the size of the department and what we're doing, that's all going to affect everything to the left of that 8 cents. And what I have to do with the fund estimate, and my staff, of course, who does all the real work, they have to look at that 8 cents, figure out how all the pieces are going to fit together, and come up with a capacity for the fund estimate. So it's a pretty challenging role. It's one that we've done fairly successfully in the past. We've been very successful in our management of the cash flows for the department over the last 5 years in particular. But this chart, I think, really lays out what we're dealing with the fund estimate going forward. And finally, speaking to Commissioner Gardino's question, how is the fund estimate schedule going to fit in with the commission schedule? This is where we stand. So today I'm giving this brief overview. At the next commission meeting on March 5th, we will bring to the commission draft assumptions for discussion. We're already working on assumptions. We're working with your staff and other staff at the department to come up with all the assumptions that are proposed for adoption in the fund estimate. We will bring up key assumptions with options and recommendations. We won't expect action at that point unless, obviously, the commission wishes to give direction. But the assumption, adoption by the commission or approval, if you will, would occur at the following meeting in May. So that gives the commission lots of time to give feedback through staff or directly to the department on those original assumptions that we bring forward in March. Based on the commission action in May, we will develop a draft fund estimate for presentation at the June meeting. So what we end up with this schedule is having to prepare the draft fund estimate about a month earlier than we otherwise would. That's doable, but I will warn the commission right up front that we probably will be either yellow or handed out at the meeting. There just simply isn't enough time to do so with the Bagley Keene requirements otherwise. So that's required in June. We will meet that deadline. And then finally, adoption of the fund estimate itself on August 6th will meet the August 15th deadline. And that's the end of my presentation. I'll be happy to answer questions.
Yes, Commissioner.
I have a question on page 6, Stephen, when you're talking about the statutory guidance of the expenditures.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that these were in priority order.
Yes.
Administrative at the top
Yes.
is not something from the business perspective that I would necessarily have a top priority.
Speaking as an administrator, that's understood. So from a state standpoint, we're essentially laying out just like it is in Section 163 of the Streets and Highways Code, which does delineate those priorities. So when we're talking about administration, we're talking about the structure of the organization,
right.
Without which the rest of these items could not exist. So that's laid out in statute. The size of the administration is laid out through policy, through the governor's budget adopted by the legislature. We would not be making any assumption that it's going to get a lot bigger or anything like that in the fund estimate, but it is a structure that will exist.
Well, you know, we heard from our self-help counties that presented some suggestions to all of us, and I think recognizing how lean it is going to be for all of us in the future, you know, I wonder if we want to kind of talk about some of these issues.
We absolutely can, and that will be something we will be discussing with the presentation of draft assumptions at the next meeting.
Yes, Jim.
I'm intrigued by your foreshortened dollar, which is probably symbolic of where we're at.
It
But
doesn't stretch as far as it used to.
Just two quick questions. When you ended up in saying there's 8 cents available for new project starts, does that include all things Caltrans does, shop, STIP, whatever?
Yes, this would be for any new capital or local assistance project. So this would be STIP, SHOP, and although it is otherwise set aside in law, it also includes local assistance expenditures.
Okay. And the sum of project support and department support is 18 cents. But it looks to me like your capital support is averaging in the 30s somewhere, so I was a little confused about that.
So capital outlay support generally does range in the 30s, low 30% range. One of the peculiarities of this when we're talking about all the projects that Caltrans does is some of those projects are local assistance projects. And local assistance projects are handled like a grant to a local agency. It includes both support on their end and the project cost itself on their end. It's classified, however, as local assistance in terms of the state, so it counts as a project going out. And it's allocated, I believe, the same way by the Commission.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just a quick question for CTC staff. Do you anticipate any policy, major policy changes or anything that might impact development of the 2014 fund estimate? Seeing anything coming down the pike that?
Well, at this point, I'm not aware of anything.
Okay.
I think the biggest thing that'll impact it if we see some legislation that looks like it's going somewhere. Historically, the biggest thing that's impacted the fund estimate has been the budget.
Yeah.
And that's historically the reason it's been late, the state budget, and I think that's probably the potential for jamming up the timeline is if the budget that's enacted is significantly different than what's around May revision, then there's a limited amount of time for Steve and staff to make those changes to meet the August deadline.
Thank you.
Any other question?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
I'm sorry.
As important as the fund estimate is, and I assume when you mention a yellow sheet, that it's going to be lots of sheets, I appreciate how hard you and your team and our staff are going to need to work in May and June to have that for our June meeting. But I'm less comfortable with something this important and a stack of sheets that I am assuming is going to be quite thick to just get a yellow packet when we're sitting up here in the dais and really don't have a chance to read it in advance. Is there any way that you can work with your team and ours to actually have that in our packet the week before so that we can digest it and hopefully provide much more thoughtful comments to you than just getting a thick packet of yellow paper at the dais that we truly cannot read?
Commissioners, certainly we'll work to try to get it ahead of time. Should we not be able to, what we'll do is work with the commissioners to provide a time frame to getting comments. So perhaps, similar to the shop, which was in the book here, but is a significant document, and there'll be about a month for which the commission will have to comment on that. We would do the same thing with the draft fund estimates so that you wouldn't have to get your comments in right at the commission meeting.
Thank you, sir.
Also, I would add that the draft fund estimate is, in this case, presented prior to adoption of the budget. So it is likely to change, if not significantly, it will change with the adoption of the budget. It will change how some of the programs are funded. So there's always going to be a difference between the two. But that said, we will endeavor to get it done as quickly as possible.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Item number 17.
Commissioners are going to turn the tables a little bit, and I'm going to announce Mitch Weiss of your staff who will be presenting this item.
Quickly.
What I wanted to do, Commissioners, is just give a brief history of the excise tax because that's one of the key revenues we'll be looking at in the fund estimate. This chart goes back to 1970. It shows the combined state and federal excise tax on gasoline. The last increase was in 1994. You'll notice there's a bump in 2010. That was the gas tax swap. That was really a net zero change. It was not adding any new revenue. It was just making what was sales tax excise tax. So the last time we increased it was in 1994. Back then, gas cost $1.21 a gallon. Long time ago, that was the Northridge earthquake. We had the O.J. Simpson slow speed chase. We had Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan. It was quite a lot has changed since then. There's my daughter. She's hoping to go to college at Colgate there next year.
Hey, Colgate.
And prices have gone up quite a bit on most things. Movie tickets up 100%, new cars 140%. Some of the changes, milk and coffee, those are 40, 60% closer to what the CPI would get us. The gas price using the 2010 California price of $3.09 is up 155%. Excise tax remains unchanged at 36 cents. If you look at it, where do you buy your bread? That was from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And it's based on the pound, not a loaf. God bless them, they're economists or statisticians. What this chart shows is the relationship, and it's the gas excise tax as a percent of the price. And looking back to 1970, 32% of what we paid at the pump was actually the excise tax. And actually that relationship was even very similar in 94 when it got raised. It was at about that 30% level. So it was 32%. Even if you add in the gas tax swap, which is net zero, now we're only paying 17% of the price of the pump. So what it would take to get back to something like 32 cents would be, or 32% would be a 67-cent excise tax increase, which is pretty significant. It would, based on the gas price of $3.09, it would take a pump price up to $3.76, which is not horribly shocking to many people, but that's a significant increase. What that would mean to the average driver is a cost of about $1.10 a day.
You're welcome.
The other side of that, though, the average cost to a driver driving in California for tires and wear, for the price that's attributable to driving on roads in poor conditions is $1.62. And so not only are we all paying that $1.62 because of damage to our cars, but also we're eventually paying to get that road fixed, because eventually we're going to fix it anyway. So really, we're paying twice. And I would note that 67 cents would probably buy about 25% of this cup of coffee I got out in the lobby. So it's not a lot of what I'm spending. In terms of what that would generate if we did something like that, that's almost $10 billion. And the state share of that, roughly $6.2 billion. That's based on the split of our existing base excise tax. Something like that. This isn't counting diesel, which would generate another $2 billion, but just looking at that state share of roughly $6.2 billion, that would come pretty close to solving our shortfall in funding the shop, which we're going to talk about in the next presentation. Any questions? Yes, Mr. Arp.
Great presentation. That's kind of way of being able to explain this that we need to be able to impart to the public. The challenge we have, I just did some polling in my day job, and we haven't got all the numbers back in yet, but unfortunately, gas excise tax continues to remain in an unbelievably lousy place as far as the voters are concerned, because somehow they are continuing to equate the price of gas with how much taxes they're paying on gas. They are making an incorrect assumption that they're paying too much for gas tax. Because one of the questions we asked them is, we gave them a whole list of taxes and asked them which ones they thought were too high and too low. And they all think that they're paying too much for gas tax. So we've got a big job to do as a transportation community to get the correct information out. But this is really good. Thanks.
You're welcome. Yes. One quick comment, Mitch. Excellent presentation, and I'm glad that your daughter's thinking about going to Colgate. I heard that school turns out some really great graduates.
I just heard it was really expensive.
That's
I'm
all
sure
you're
it is.
concerned about, right?
I'm sure it is. The other, I think we have to talk about another issue of equity, because when we talk about raising excise tax on motor vehicle fuels, we're talking about gasoline and diesel. We're not talking about electric. We're not talking about ethanol. We're not talking about CNG. And increasingly, that's where the policy of the state with one arm, with CARB and the other agencies that are pushing us to get into alternative fuels because of climate change and air pollution issues, that's where they're going. And there has to be a conversation. So as we go on with this, I think we have to be talking to those agencies as they're developing their energy plans, say, we have no beef with moving more people to electric cars or cars that run on, vegetable oil or whatever it is, but they also use the roads, and they need to pay their fair share of the wear and tear on those roads.
Yeah, and in the long term, I don't think there are very many people out there who don't think eventually we're going to do some kind of VMT or road usage fee. I mean, in the long run, it's going to have to be something like that. The question is, how do we get there? They're doing another pilot study in Oregon. Personally, I think it would be nice if California did something like that. The Oregon pilot study is really a very small sample size. They don't have very many people doing it, and so it's not an insurmountable or not a horrible thing to do. And one of the interesting things that I thought they're doing is they've gone and gotten what they call VIP users. So they get some legislators to participate in this over and above their normal group that's doing that, so that the people who are going to be helping form some of the policy start to understand what this really means.
That's a really good idea.
Thank you. Any other questions? Item number 18.
Item 18 is...
I did have a question, but just like crossing a street, Mr. Chairman, please look both ways. Mitch, excellent presentation, and with the possible exception of your daughter's ultrasound photo, could you send out the soft copy of your slides to everyone?
Yes, I will send it out without that. That's why I didn't send it out before.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And building on Commissioner Frommer's point about electric vehicles, et cetera, which we all hope more people will adopt, myself included, but that does nothing for traffic congestion. And a clean-burning car uses up the same amount of road as a fossil fuel-burning car. And so that conversation that Commissioner Frommer alluded to is something that truly needs to happen.
Joe?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, thank you.
That way this time.
Mitch, this is really very informational, very to the point. It's too bad we didn't include it in our annual report to the legislature, because I think this is a must-read.
Oops. Next year.
I'll get that next year.
Can't do it now, huh? All righty, we'll move on. Item number 19.
18.
I'm
Commissioners.
sorry, you got it marked.
Item 18 is a review and comment on the proposed 10-year SHOP plan. Statutorily, the department is required to submit this to the commission by the end of January, and the commission has opportunity to review and comment and then transmit it to the legislature by May 1st. What I would suggest is that commissioners can get comments to staff by February 8th, a month from today, and we will incorporate those comments and present them to Caltrans so that when they come back at the March meeting, they can address those issues, and we'll send out an email reminder.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
I'm sorry, yes.
Can I just mention just a general? Right.
One thing I'd like the department to concentrate on, I know this is a 10-year SHOP program totaling about $7.1 billion, but there's almost $2 billion in support costs that are attached to that $7 million. In an era where we're short of money, I would hope that the department starts thinking seriously about how we can save some money on support costs.
I was actually going to make a similar comment. I was trying to reconcile the support percentages by category varied quite a bit, which I found a bit confusing. And then I noticed the ratios at the $7 million theoretical need were different percentages than were used at the $2 million usage by category. So the support percentages jumped around, which is very confusing. And So I was just, again, I was trying to reconcile that, and then when I was listening to Stephen's presentation earlier to understand the whole G&A overview of this, because as has been commented here, if we're talking about needing a lot of money, which means it's a political process to get new money, it's going to be incumbent upon us to be able to demonstrate to the public that we're not wasting any money. And so we need to be able to present these numbers in a much clearer way. And one last question, again, for Caltrans, is you've got this support under the $7 billion number, which you know you won't have to spend. Now, that's a hard, I assume that's a hard number. Is that an actual number that will be spent for support expenses, people, buildings, stuff like that, if I understand the categories of support, even though the actual amount of money running through the shop is $2 billion? Now, obviously, that's not mathematically possible, but that's also confusing to me.
No, the number in the goal constraints chart, which is 103 for support, 103 million, that is related to preparation of the planning documents, and so that is a smaller number when you look at the financially constrained table. So, and we'll work with them to look at the question of why the percentages vary between the two charts. I'll also note that there will be some changes to the numbers based on some comments staff had. One of the issues that we had with this was there is no escalation rate included in these numbers, and there's a table in there which shows I think about an 8% average per year escalation. So 3%. So we'll be making some adjustments for that also.
Mr. Chairman, to me, this just underscores the importance of the work that our staff and Vice Chair Gilmedi facilitated with the MPOs about where we go from here in terms of funding. Mitch just hit it on the head. The $71 billion figure isn't the total figure. It is just the constrained figure. And we're going to be meeting barely $2 billion of the need, and that doesn't take into account the growth annually, as you just said, 8% a year. So I'm glad this commission is going to be focusing a lot on that issue of how do we find the additional revenues that we need.
Thank you.
And I would suggest that perhaps in our next retreat that we discuss that as well.
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry.
I think that all ties back to that page 6 of Stevens with administration as the top priority too. So I think it's all an integrated discussion we need to have.
Thank you. Mitch?
Caltrans has a presentation which will go be an overview of the proposed plan. If you'd like to hear his presentation, otherwise we'll send an email requesting comments in writing.
You can send that email. Item number 19.
Commissioners, this is an information item, and Comey Ajesi, Caltrans Deputy Director for Planning and Modal, is here to provide you with an overview of the Caltrans statewide planning efforts going on. I wanted to let you know this presentation is in part in response to the passage of Senate Bill 391, authored by Senator Liu in 2009. SB 391 requires that the California Transportation Plan be updated by December 31st, 2015, and every 5 years thereafter. The plan must now address how the state will achieve maximum feasible emission reductions in order to attain a statewide reduction of greenhouse gas emissions to 1990 levels by 2020 and 80% below 1990 levels by 2050. As required by Senate Bill 391, during December 2012, the Commission did receive an interim report. This report was also submitted to specified legislative committee chairs. The interim report, as Comey will describe, it provides information regarding the sustainable community strategies that have been adopted by the 3 MPOs to date, and it includes an assessment of how implementation of these strategies will influence the configuration of the statewide integrated multimodal transportation system. Comey's presentation today will provide information with respect to the interim report submitted to the Commission and also the various planning efforts underway to identify the statewide integrated multimodal transportation system for inclusion in the 2015 California Transportation Plan. And, you know, as you listen today, one of the things that I'm listening for is as part of our statewide transportation needs assessment report that we're writing right now on the revenue that, you know, the unfunded needs are in part due to what is being projected in these plans going forward over the next decade and into 2040. So this is an information item today. There's no action required today on the part of the Commission. However, if the Commission does have comments that you would like to send, what I'll do is I'll take feedback from you throughout the next month, maybe through February 8th or on, and I'll prepare a formalized set of comments to bring forward at the March meeting. So with that, I'll turn it over to Comey.
Questions?
Thank you, Susan. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good afternoon, Chair. Comey Ajisa, for the record, the Deputy Director. I'm so used to being a District Director. So. Deputy Director for Planning and Modal Programs. Glad to be with you today. I think just to start off, without question, I think the Department is very understanding of the sentiments that have been expressed about being leaner and more efficient, and we have actually taken a lot of steps, as had been reported here before, in addressing that through our program review and subsequent efforts that are underway. What we are hoping to do with our planning process and the planning program is to begin to help inform future project selection processes across modes with that same sentiment infused all through. As we go through the presentation today, I'm sure it's not going to be exhaustive. In fact, I expect that it wouldn't be exhaustive, and there will be a lot of questions. I think the commitment we're going to leave with you is that we're very open to having those collaborative discussions in moving processes forward. Our focus is obviously on preservation. That's something we've talked about in this forum and elsewhere. We're looking to also make sure that our planning process and the documents that are before you for review anticipates the needs going forward and how those needs are taken care of. And, you know, the additional dimension of managing the environmental issues of our day, including managing for greenhouse gas reductions, I think is also one to keep in mind. So with that, the essence of our planning process is to get the most out of the existing system, using as much efficiency as possible, protecting the investment that we have already in the system, and to also be accountable for those investments that are made through the use of performance measures over time, and ultimately invest strategically, given the scarce resources that we anticipate will be the story of our lives going into the future. The California Transportation Plan is really an overarching document. It's a policy document that basically provides an umbrella for the entire system, and it's focused on future mobility. The plan is multimodal. It seeks to integrate our state and regional plans, and it broadly envisions a sustainable, connected, multimodal system that affords us an opportunity to, if where possible, reduce congestion, serve regional and interregional travel needs, reduce greenhouse gases, as mentioned earlier, and enhance our environment as much as possible while providing options to users and also serving to the full benefit the people and goods that are moved safely across the systems. What is the plan? Well, the plan is a statewide long-range plan that's intended to meet future mobility needs. It defines goals and policies and strategies in line with the existing state statutes and also in line with MAP 21 in order to achieve what the collective vision for our system will be. It also helps to integrate all the other plans across the plane, whether they're modal plans that we're working on at the department, but also more so including the regional plans that are developed with the input at the grassroots at the regional level. The plan will assess the performance of our statewide modeling tools. It will, we're working on a statewide demand model as we speak, with the intent of using that to inform future plan development, at least be able to coordinate between regions more so, and be able to predict future years as necessary. It's going to include a freight element. We're working also on a freight model, which I see you're smiling already at me, and I can't hold it. I can't hold it together.
Got Fran already.
I know.
My best
And we're hoping to conclude the freight model by the middle of this year. It has a planning horizon of 20 years, and it's prepared in response to federal and state requirements, as mentioned earlier on. This plan it's referred to as the 2040 plan, CTP 2040, and it's due for publication in December of 2015. That's December of 2015. This graphic really serves to show it's a little busy, I understand, but I like it because it sort of serves to show the complexity of the planning process and the interdependency of the planning process as we see it. State law under SB 375 and SB 391, as mentioned by Susan, sets up parallel regional and statewide processes to reduce greenhouse gases. Regions are preparing sustainable community strategies, SCSs, as part of their RTPs. Caltrans prepared the CIB as part of the CTP. SB 391 requires the department to prepare an interim report for the CTC and specify legislative committees, and that was due at the end of 2012, and they've been duly submitted, and that should be in your package. It came to the commission at the end of the year. The interim report, the CIB interim report, assessed the impact of this SCSs on the statewide system, and the ones that are completed were in that CIB interim report. We have included, just for brevity's sake, we've included the executive summaries of that report in your package as well. The CIB, to be a little bit more specific, intends to, really one of the major requirements of the CIB was to assess SCSs as mentioned. To date, we have 3 SCSs that have been adopted by SANDAG, SCAG, and SACOG. Those were fleshed out in the CIB with the impacts of those SCSs reflected on how it shows across the transportation system. One of the patterns that we've seen in the CIB as regions develop their SCSs, one of the patterns we're seeing is increased investment in transit. We're seeing MPOs focusing more of the limited discretionary revenues and funding on transit capacity, frequency, and connectivity. We're also seeing a lot of focus on maintaining and preserving existing systems, but we're also seeing complete streets, bicycling and walking alternatives being provided for as part of this reaction to greenhouse gas reduction. We're seeing on the highway side, we're seeing more managed lane type projects, and we expect that will be the case as more SCSs come on board. And we're also seeing a more overt coordination of land use and transportation at the regional level. These are the plans that we are integrating. Some of the plans are already done through the CIB and the CTP. We're hoping to integrate our multimodal plans. Each one contains cross-modal linkages. Two of these modal plans are being presented to you today in draft form, along with a draft report on the CSMP effort. The ITSP is the highway, sort of the highway type plan. The report on the implementation of the CSMPs is also in draft form. The state rail plan is being worked on, and we expect a draft to be on the streets by February, with a final in June, and at that time we'll be coming to the commission for advice and consent on that plan. And the statewide freight mobility plan is also under development, with the expectation that we'll have a draft on that plan by December 2013. The 2 remaining plans, the statewide transit strategic plan was completed earlier this year and has been published, and it was a very strong collaborative effort with transit properties, transit operators, and the CTA to develop that plan. And the state aviation system plan was also done and adopted back in 2011. Focusing on the CSMP, the CSMP was one that the commission actually had a hand in with direct input, with the direct relationship to the CMIA program. The CSMP were completed for all CMIA projects. We have a fact sheet, hopefully, in your package on the CSMP. Individual CSMPs were done that had more than one CMIA project included in it. In other words, when you look at a corridor, sometimes the corridors actually take in more than one project. So but all CMIA projects were covered by CSMPs. All the CSMP corridors cover a much more extensive area than the CMIA projects would cover. The CSMPs identify system operations, management strategies, and limited capital projects that maintain or improve mobility gains that are generated by the projects. All CSMPs that have been completed and now posted on the department's internet site. There were some things that we learned in the process of creating the CSMPs at the district level. It was very technically challenging to try and use the current modeling capacity of the day. In fact, I think the process ably taxed, can you say the word taxed? Taxed the system. It's the wrong place to talk about taxes, I guess. It ably stretched, maybe that's a better word, the capacity of industry to produce those cutting-edge modeling work that needed to be done to assess the mobility gains that a project will provide, the bond project would provide. So that's one major lessons learned that we took away from that. Our intent, I think the idea of the CSMP is to be able to make sure that whatever mobility gains we got out of the bond investment, that we find a way to account for it over time, either by being able to address future development that uses up those mobility, that capacity that's provided with some mitigation, as it were. The ITSP was one that came about a long time ago. As a result of SB 45, the department was required to identify critical interregional highways, and so the ITSP was the vehicle through which we were able to communicate the policy behind the critical interregional highways that were identified. The ITSP lays out basically, again, there's a copy of it in your package, of the executive summary in your package. With each regional agency controlling the RIP dollars, we were at the department level required to provide for the interregional route and the interregional connectivity. As a result of the ITSP, there was a focus on 10 routes that we basically the deemed focus routes. Those 10 routes basically were the ones that we were investing our interregional resources on, with a very strong policy direction behind that work. Now, what's been done as a result is, in the next slide, there's much work done on the focus route, and I think you should have a large map in front of you that shows the focus routes that are part of the ITSP. I think this slide here, the table at least, is an indication of the discussion we've been having about resources, the lack thereof of resources. Since 1998, since we have been working on the focus route system, we've been able to complete about 30% of those projects, and there's still more work to be done. Now, these routes are not necessarily, if you look at the map, you notice that they're chunks of specific routes, and they're really intended to show areas that we want to spend interregional resources on between regions and not through the regions. So if there are any questions about that, that's why they look like that. I'm going to move a little bit faster here. There's a lot of discussion I don't know if there are any questions. I probably should pause if there are any questions. Okay, I noticed I was losing.
I just have a question, Comey.
Yes.
The I-5, our beloved I-5 project in the south, to me, I would expect, I mean, this is non-urbanized area, so is that why the 5 isn't on here?
Well, the interstates were not identified
not
as a focus
highlighted.
route. Yeah, because the interstate have priority anyway, so we didn't feel like we need to spend more time expressing.
We're a long way from finishing that.
Well, all over the state. Yes.
Comey, another quick question. Because these are interregional, this is routes picked in 1998. In other words, I look at Orange County, and it's the 6th most populated county in America, and yet there's no east-west connection between Orange County and the Inland Empire. Or, for example, Ortega Highway is missing from here. Yet that's an interregional connection between areas. Are those the kind of comments you're looking for, as to
Absolutely.
Hopefully that we could include into your thinking?
Absolutely, and I think your earlier statement about these were routes picked since 1998.
Yeah.
I think that's an important point. We've basically have been, the intent of this report right now is to update where we were.
Great.
Or where we've been. There's obviously an open discussion we could have about focus routes. We would argue that the ones that are there right now are not completed yet, and so adding more to it is just going to be another more drag on the resources available. But that's not necessarily a statement to say we can't revisit the decisions behind those focus routes. Yes, Commissioner Hart.
Yes, if you have opportunity to hand this to legislative members, I would, to make a statement, hand it out with a magnifying glass. Then instructions on where they can find the blue fully funded sections, because that's what you're going to need to find them. I finally found a few, but I tell you what, a magnifying glass would be helpful.
Point well taken.
Yeah. Where are they? We're small.
I should now that you bring up something I need to work on, I'm going to mention which staff is around here today. I was going to introduce some of the staff that are working on this. They're here, and I just want to recognize both Bruce and Pam Cordy, Bruce DeTerra, Pam Cordy from our planning unit.
This is not a comment about any of the staff work. It's a comment about how much staff or how much funding there actually is, for the
little funding.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the point also that we probably need to have a clearer presentation. I take that.
Looking for something blue.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Moving on to the freight mobility plan, we've been sort of dealing with a lot of legislative movement and policy directions, both out of Washington and obviously here in Sacramento, along the lines of freight and freight rail and rail in general. We've been participating as fully as possible on the freight sessions that Federal Highway has been hosting, as well as the discussions online. We've been following the initial guidance that was released, and we expect that there will be more over time. I think one of the things we're proud of, especially in the freight area, is that California has been the leader in discussing the issues of freight movement, and we want to both maintain and improve that leadership position that we're in. And that's the essence of the freight mobility plan. I think it's very important that our current freight planning effort produce a plan that's both inclusive of the diversity that we see in our freight, in the freight world, in the freight sector, and also improves our competitiveness in the global economy. And that's really the essence of our work in the freight planning area. But along the same lines, because it's California, obviously, while doing all of that, we have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We have to satisfy environmental requirements and meet the environmental needs that communities have expectations of. We have a state advisory committee that's being formed as we speak. There's a process going on to try and identify that advisory committee, and it will include representation from the commission, regional agencies, several areas of the freight industry and other key stakeholders, and we're sort of working through the framework of identifying who all should be at the table without overcrowding the discussion with too many people. And I think the structure that I see, and I obviously will be looking for as much input as possible. The structure we see within the department is a process where you have a freight advisory committee, but also depends a lot on things that are happening at the regional level, as we want to do anyway in the state. No questions? Okay. Still on the freight plan, we have several building blocks that sort of aggregate themselves into the freight mobility plan. We already have several significant freight planning efforts that are underway prior to MAP 21 being enacted. And so we weren't waiting for MAP 21, and we've done a lot of work before MAP 21 came along. However, we also have to anticipate what the guidance might be comes out of MAP 21. So we're moving with deliberate speed, anticipating that we'll see more clarity in federal direction. And as that clarity shows up, I think we would have been ahead of the game in terms of our process. Some of our regions, such as SCAG and the San Joaquin Valley MPOs, have developed some regional freight plans that are very good. So we're looking to have those feed into the state freight plan. The state rail plan itself, which I'll talk about shortly, also has a freight rail component to it, and the administrative draft of that freight rail plan, the rail plan itself is out in circulation already, and it's been reviewed right now. We're in the process of conducting a study on ground access to on air cargo. That's again with the intent of feeding into the freight mobility plan with that aspect of the freight sector. We have a scoping study for the freight plan been planned for February. It should be concluded in February, and it's already bringing, just the effort to date is bringing forth enough information that it's actionable and telling us about the current trend. We are, as mentioned earlier, and we're working on a freight model, a statewide freight model. And this is in partnership with ARB because they've become a very strong stakeholder in this process. And we think having that collaborative work with them will serve us well in devising a statewide freight model that also feeds into the statewide travel demand model. There are a couple of near-term issues that we're also dealing with. One is the designation of the National Freight System. We want to be at the forefront of being identified in that system as a state. We want to identify as much of our inventory as possible. We're also getting existing RTP projects that identified freight projects, getting them ready and eligible for the higher percentage, 90 to 95% federal participation, is also a very interesting near-term objective that we have. We are working as closely as possible with our federal partners, and we'll take any help we can take in pushing our agenda on the freight mobility model. Freight mobility plan. The state rail plan is the next plan. Was there a question?
Can I just add one thing? Comey, thank you. I don't know that we've ever had so many pages dedicated to goods movement and freight in our meetings lately, so hooray. As you know, and Bruce has been down to the SCAG region on a regular basis, this is the topic of the CEO meeting that takes most of the agenda for most of our meetings in Southern California. So I think, when you talk about new guidance coming out, I think many of us in Southern California and perhaps throughout the state want to help the DOT with that guidance. So rather than reacting, I want to say that we're all resources for you, so we can all work together in terms of not having to go back and argue our position to get these key routes in, and I'll use the 60 freeway as a means of example. Really key national corridors. So I think that we really have to, we'd love to have you down on a regular basis to be a resource, and I know throughout the state a number of communities are doing extra work. So anything we can do, we applaud your efforts, but I think time is of the essence, and clearly as we can have like a master calendar and make sure that it's all lining up so that we are at the table kind of ahead of when the menu comes out. Thanks.
I will be setting up follow-up conversations with you, obviously, about this. We'll be there at the table. I'm going to quickly wrap up with the state rail plan. The schedule for the state rail plan is that the admin draft was released last month, 19th of December, and we have the draft document coming out in February. There will be public meetings at 5 different locations across the state that we're looking at, and the final plan should come to the commission in June. I sense that I probably used my time. Are there any other questions?
Thank you. We are going to, one quick one, and then...
Oh, no, I have, well, I promise I'll try to be quick.
Well, we need to take a break here.
So your call, Mr. Chairman. I promise I'll be quick. Try to be quick.
I'm waiting.
What is the difference, Comey, between a California Transportation Plan 2040 and a California Interregional Blueprint?
The interregional blueprint was a summarization of the efforts that are going on with regards to SB 375.
Okay. So I have to ask you sound bites now because the chairman will yell at me. Okay. So when we talk about an interregional blueprint that's integrating California's transportation future, I'm wondering if we shouldn't say integrating California's future, cross out transportation and add an icon that is a house. Because that's the one thing missing for me in an interregional blueprint is you are Caltrans, God love you, this is great work, great stuff, I love this. But if the new law is SB 375, that's supposed to integrate transportation and housing, and we know we need 200,000 new housing units each and every year since 1989, and we haven't met that need, that the housing part of this plan seems to me to be missing. For that integration side. Is that wrong thinking?
Well, I think it's good thinking. What I would say is Linda is in the audience and she's having a field day.
Is she having a conniption fit because I just
she's
talked?
Enjoying. I think real quickly the answer to that is we are integrating, and we're in fact the essence of our statewide travel demand model is to do exactly that.
Is there another report that talks housing and transportation that I don't know about?
Well, most of the work on coordinating housing, land use, and transportation is done at the regional level, and basically we're taking all of that into the statewide consideration on transportation.
So the answer is no, or the answer is yes?
The answer is almost yes, but we cannot determine housing because we don't have the authority.
I know that. I know. That's why I'm asking these hard questions because I'm just trying to figure it out myself.
I guess maybe what I would have to say is you should be comforted by the fact that we're collaborating with the housing sector.
But there's no housing in here, so I'm looking for something that demonstrates collaboration.
The mobility demand is directly related to housing.
Correct.
Yes.
So that's why I think it should say something.
Everything here is not in isolation. It has to do with housing.
And that's why I think it should say
and land
something.
Use.
Okay.
Thank you, Comey. And now you will take a 10-minute break. 10-minute break.